I do not remember every face anymore. That is just the truth of it. 43 years behind the wheel, you see maybe 100,000 people come and go through that back door. The faces blur. They have to, otherwise you would not be able to sleep. But objects I remember. There was a woman once who left a red scarf on the seat, silk, folded neat, like she had placed it there on purpose. I drove 2 more fares before I noticed it. Never found out whose it was. But I can still see the color of it against the gray vinyl, still see exactly where it sat. A man left a silver lighter once, old-fashioned, the kind you flip open with your thumb, no name on it, no markings, just wear, the kind of wear that takes decades. I kept it in my cup holder for a week, thinking he would call the dispatch. He never did. Objects carry things that people cannot say out loud. I believe that now, the way I believe in traffic patterns and rain. It is just something you learn. There is one object I kept longer than any other. A receipt. Pharmacy receipt. Crumpled the way. Something gets crumpled when a person holds it too tight, then forgets they are holding it at all. I found it wedged between the seat and the door. That small gap where things fall and disappear. I still have it. It is in my glove compartment right now, tucked under the registration and an old pen that stopped working 3 years ago. I have not looked at it in a while, but I know it is there. The way you know a scar is there without having to look. People ask me sometimes why I still drive. Semi-retired, my daughter calls it. She says it like it is a kindness, a soft word for something she does not fully understand. But the truth is simpler than that. I drive because I am still listening. Because somewhere out there, somebody is about to get in a cab and say something they have never said to anyone. And I want to be the one in the front seat when they do. I am 68 years old. My knees hurt in the morning. The city has changed in ways that still catch me off guard. But the back seat is the back seat, and people are still people. That receipt, let me tell you about the man who left it. It was a daytime fare. That is what made it stick, eventually. Most of the rides I carry with me happened at night. Night has a way of loosening people. The dark outside the window, the city lights blurring past, the sense that nobody can really see you. People talk in cabs at night the way they talk to priests, or bartenders, or no one. Daytime is different. Daytime people are on their way somewhere with a purpose. They check their phones. They sit forward. They have somewhere to be, and someone expecting them. They do not open up. Not usually. So when something stays with me from a daytime ride, I pay attention to that. There is a reason it stayed. There is always a reason. I found the receipt after a Tuesday shift. Mid-October, I think. The air had that particular bite to it, the kind that comes before the city fully commits to winter. I was doing my end-of-day wipe-down. I run a clean cab, always have. Some drivers let things accumulate, coffee cups, transfer slips, the general debris of a working day. I never could. Too much of my life spent in that car. You keep a house clean, you keep a cab clean. I saw it in the gap between the rear seat and the door. Passenger side. It had been pushed in there, or fallen, or both. I pulled it out and held it under the dome light. Pharmacy receipt, one of the big chain ones, printed on that thin paper that starts to go soft the moment any humidity touches it. The timestamp read, 2:11 in the afternoon, one item purchased. A prescription, the name of the medication meant nothing to me. Long word, medical. I am not a doctor, but the price was listed. $84 and some change, paid in cash. Cash. That meant something, though I could not have told you what at the time. I set it on the passenger seat and finished my wipe down. Then I sat there for a minute, the way I do at the end of a shift. Just sat. The city doing what it does outside the windshield. I did not remember the fare right away. That is the honest truth. He had not done anything loud enough to make me look twice in the mirror. He was just a man in the back seat, same as 100 men before him that week. But the receipt sat there, and something about it would not let me throw it away. So I put it in the glove compartment. Told myself I would toss it later. Later never came. It came back to me slowly. That is how memory works when nothing dramatic happened. It does not arrive all at once. It seeps in, a detail here, a detail there, until you have enough pieces to see the shape of a person. His name I only know because he paid with a card on the return trip. I glanced at it the way you do. Daniel Brooks. That is all I had. A name on a card and a face I had to reconstruct from nothing. Mid-40s. American. Not from the Bronx. I could tell that much. The way a person sits in a borough that is not theirs is different. A subtle thing. They look out the window a little more carefully, like they are reading a map they did not know they would need. He was wearing a clean shirt, buttoned down, light blue. The kind of shirt a person puts on when they want to look like they have it together. Not a suit, not a tie. Just a clean shirt that said, "I am trying." I noticed it because it was too considered for a Tuesday afternoon. Most people in the back seat on a Tuesday are in whatever they grabbed that morning. He had thought about that shirt. His hands. I remember his hands. He kept them in his lap, but they were not still. Not ringing. Nothing dramatic like that. Just restless. Fingers moving against each other, the way they do when a person is working through something in their head, and the body has to do something with the leftover energy. He checked the time 3 times before we crossed the bridge. I counted without meaning to. Once on his phone, once on his watch. Once on his phone again, like the watch had given him an answer he did not trust. Then he did something I have thought about since. He looked at the watch a 4th time, but this time he did not read it. He just looked at it. Held his wrist up and stared at the face of it like he was looking at something that used to belong to someone else. Maybe it did. Some watches carry that kind of history. You can tell. People check the time like that when they are dreading an arrival, not when they are late. When they are late, they check once, and then they stare forward. Multiple times means something different. It means they are counting down to something they are not sure they can do. I did not know any of this in the moment. I am assembling it now, the way you assemble anything after the fact, with the receipt as the anchor and everything else arranged around it. But here is what I think I knew, without knowing it. I think I knew he was carrying something heavy. You drive long enough, you stop identifying the weight. You just feel it. The cab sits different when a person brings grief into it. I cannot explain that any better than I just did. He gave me the address and then he went quiet. The address was up near Fordham, a residential block, the kind that has been the same for 30 years and knows it. Row houses, a bodega on the corner. One of those blocks that does not ask questions about who comes and goes. He said the address once, clearly, like he had rehearsed it. Then he sat back, and that was the end of it. I did not push. I never push. That is not what I am there for. My job is to drive. Everything else that happens in the cab happens because the passenger allows it. You learn that early or you learn it the hard way. But the silence on that ride was a particular kind. Night silence, I understand. Night silence is comfortable. People stare out at the lights and they drift, and that is fine. There is an anonymity to night that makes silence feel natural. Like the dark is doing the talking. Daytime silence is different. Daytime silence has to work against something. Against the light. Against the noise of the city. Against the general sense that the world is awake and moving, and you should be too. When someone goes quiet in the daytime, they are choosing it. They are holding it in place against some resistance. Daniel Brooks held it in place the whole ride up. I watched him the way I watch all of them, not staring, just the mirror, brief checks, the kind of looking that is really just listening with your eyes. He did not look out the window much. That surprised me, given that I had already sensed he did not know the Bronx. Instead, he looked at his hands, or at the back of the seat in front of him, or at nothing in particular, which is its own kind of looking. Once, he almost said something. I felt it. There is a thing that happens in the cab sometimes, where a passenger draws breath in a certain way, and you know words are coming. You do not look. You just wait. And then they decide against it, and the breath comes back out, and the silence closes over again like water. He did that once, somewhere around the 3rd Avenue Bridge. I did not look. I kept my eyes on the road, and I let him decide against it, because, whatever he was about to say, he was not ready, and there is no use in pulling something out of a person before they are ready. It just makes a mess of things. We got to the block and I slowed. He leaned forward and said, quietly, "Could I wait?" I said yes. He got out. Left the door open a few inches, the way people do when they mean to be quick. Then he walked toward one of the row houses, without looking back. I put the meter on wait. That is standard. Time is time and the cab does not run on goodwill. But I was not thinking about the meter. I was watching the door he had gone through. One of those doors painted dark green, the paint starting to lift at the corners. A small thing. But I noticed it. That is when I saw the jacket. He had left it on the seat. Dark gray. Folded once, not neatly, the way you fold something when your mind is somewhere else entirely. It sat there on the seat where he had been sitting, and I looked at it the way you look at something that does not belong to the moment you are in. I am not a man who goes through other people's things. I want to be clear about that. In 43 years I have found wallets, phones, once a paper bag with more cash in it than I care to name. I always turned them in, or tracked down the owner. Always. That is just how I was raised. But the jacket was folded open slightly, and the pocket was visible, and something was sticking out of it. Just the edge. White. Rectangular. I could see it without trying. I reached back and straightened the jacket. That was all I meant to do. And when I touched it, the thing slipped out and landed on the seat. A hospital wristband. The kind they put on your wrist when you are admitted. Thin plastic. Printed with small text. A name. A date. A room number. The name on it was not Daniel Brooks. I did not read everything on it. That felt like too far, but I held it for a moment. Felt the lightness of it. Those wristbands weigh almost nothing. It is strange that something so light gets put on a person at some of the heaviest moments of their life. I set it back in the pocket and laid the jacket where it had been. Then I waited. Drivers talk about instincts the way other people talk about gut feelings, but it is more specific than that. It is pattern recognition built from 10,000 repetitions, the clean shirt chosen carefully, the time checks, the watch he stared at without reading, the silence with weight in it, the wristband in the pocket instead of thrown away. I was not going anywhere. I turned the meter off. That is the honest truth of it. I turned the meter off and I sat there and I waited, because some things have nothing to do with money and everything to do with just being a decent person in the right place. The green door stayed closed. I watched it and I waited. 20 minutes. Maybe a little more. I know because I watched the clock on the dash the way I told myself I was not going to watch it. Old habit. Time is the thing a driver always knows. You cannot help it after enough years. It gets into you like a reflex. The green door opened and Daniel came out. I knew it was him before I fully saw his face. The walk. That is what changed. He had gone in walking like a man, holding something upright through sheer effort. Shoulders set, chin level. The walk of someone who has told themselves they can do this. He came out differently. Not broken. I want to be precise about that, because broken is the wrong word. Broken implies something dramatic. Falling apart, crying in the street. That was not it. He was emptied. That is the only word I have for it. Like whatever had been holding the shape of him from the inside had quietly left. He was still standing, still moving, still dressed in that careful blue shirt, but something essential was gone. He walked to the cab and got in, and pulled the door shut, with less force than he had used to open it. He did not look at me. He sat back and he looked at the ceiling for a moment. Just a second or two, the way a person looks at the ceiling, when they are making sure their eyes do not do something they have decided they will not allow. Then he looked straight ahead. He said, "Back where we came from." That was all. I pulled away from the curb and I drove. I did not say anything. There was nothing to say, or rather, there was everything to say, and none of it was mine to say. So I drove. The city moved past the windows the way it always does. Indifferent. Continuous. The Bronx giving way to the bridge, giving way to Manhattan, doing what Manhattan does, which is exist at full volume, regardless of what any single person inside it is going through. I have always found that both cruel and comforting. The city does not adjust for grief, but it also does not stop, and sometimes that is what a person needs. The world just continuing to turn while they sit quietly inside their own wreckage. I drove and I did not look at the mirror more than I had to. But once, just once, I glanced. He had his elbow on the door and his hand over his mouth, not crying, just covering something, keeping something in that wanted out. I looked back at the road. We were somewhere in the middle of the bridge when he spoke. He did not clear his throat first. did not shift in his seat, just started talking, the way people do when they have been holding something so long that at some point the holding just stops. He said, "I just signed papers to take my father off life support." I kept driving. I did not react, not because I did not feel anything, but because any reaction from me would have made it about me, and it was not about me. He said it the way you state a fact that does not feel real yet, flat, careful, like he was testing the words outside of his own head for the first time. He said his father had been in that room for 11 days, that the doctors had been honest with him from day 4, that he had a sister in Philadelphia, cousins who had opinions they shared freely without being present, that in the end, the decision had landed on him, the way these things land on whoever is closest and most able to absorb it. Then he said something that has stayed with me. He said, "My father used to call me at 7 every Sunday morning, not to say much, just to talk about the game, the weather, nothing. I used to let it go to voicemail sometimes. I do not know why. I just did." He stopped, looked at his hands. He said, "I do not know if I did the right thing." He did not say it like a question. He said it like a stone he was setting down on the floor of the cab, not asking me to pick it up, just setting it down somewhere outside of himself. I thought about what to say. I held the thought too long, the way I do. Then I said something clumsy. I said, "I think when there is only one thing left to do, it stops feeling like a choice. It just feels like the only door in the room." It was not a good thing to say. It was not the right thing to say, but it was the honest thing. And he did not need wisdom from a cab driver. He just needed someone to receive the weight of it. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Yeah." Just that. "Yeah." He was quiet again. Then he said, "I bought him medication last week, when we still thought there might be a different outcome. Paid cash, because the insurance had gotten complicated." He stopped. Paid $84 for something he never got to take. I did not say anything. He said, "I had it in my coat the whole time. I kept thinking I should throw it away, but I could not." I understood that without understanding it. Some objects become the last physical record of a hope you had. Throwing them away feels like erasing the hope itself, even when the hope is gone. Even when you know it is gone. I drove. He did not say anything more after that, and I did not ask him to. Some people talk in cabs because they need a witness, not advice, not comfort in any formal sense. Just someone to receive the words so they do not have to keep carrying them alone. That is a thing I can do. That is maybe the most useful thing I have ever learned to do. I received it. I held it quietly in the front seat, and I drove him home. He got out without the receipt. I do not know if it had fallen from his coat earlier or if it had been in the gap the whole time. It does not matter. The point is he left it and I found it, and somewhere between finding it and the end of my shift I made a quiet decision not to throw it away. I told myself it was habit, that I would deal with it later. That is what I always tell myself when I do not want to examine why I am doing something. But I kept it. Through that October and into the winter. Through a fair on New Year's Eve and a slow February and a spring that came late that year. It moved from the seat to the console to the glove compartment, and the glove compartment is where it has stayed ever since. I think about what he said, about not being able to throw the medication away, about the receipt being the last paper record of a hope that did not survive, about the Sunday morning calls he let go to voicemail. That last part is the one that got into me, not the big decision, the small one, the ordinary, thoughtless, completely human small one, the voicemails, the 7 calls about nothing, the times you do not pick up because you think there will be another one. There is always that assumption, another call, more time, right until there is not. I think people leave things in cabs because they cannot carry them anymore, but they cannot destroy them either. The cab becomes a middle place, not home, not gone, just somewhere else, somewhere neutral. A place that belongs to everyone and therefore to no one. He could not keep the receipt, but he could not throw it away on a sidewalk somewhere. So he left it in the back seat of a cab driven by a man he would never see again. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was exactly what he needed it to be. I sit in this car now, the engine off, the city doing what it always does outside the glass. A delivery truck double parked across the street, someone arguing into a phone on the corner. Two kids on bikes cutting through the intersection without looking. The ordinary world, moving the way it moves. My father has been gone for 22 years. He did not go slowly. He went the way some men go, quickly, between one moment and the next, without giving anyone the chance to say what needed saying. In some ways that is a mercy. In some ways it just means the words are still in me, sitting in me, still with nowhere particular to go. I do not think about him every day anymore. That is just time doing what time does. But I think about him today, sitting here, with the glove compartment closed and the receipt inside it. The glove compartment is closed. The receipt is in there. I am not going to look at it today, but I know it is there. Funny what people leave in the back seat. Not everything fits in a pocket. Some things, they just need somewhere else to stay.